The new economic policy was introduced in 1970 following the race riots of 1969. The NEP had two thrusts. First, the eradication of poverty regardless of race, and second, the restructuring of society so that economic activities would not be identified with race. In order to achieve the second thrust, quantitative targets were set. One of these was that Bumiputra should hold 30% of corporate equity by 1990. And although the new economic policy expired in the 1990s and has been replaced by the National Vision Policy, many of its policies still survive. These have not been without criticism. Some see the policies as pro-Bumiputra and as a stumbling block to economic competitiveness, and there have been calls for an end to these policies. But before I bring on our first guest, let's find out what Malaysians think of the NEP.
Saya rasa patut diteruskan lagi. Kalau kita nak compete dengan dia orang ni memang susah.
Dengan orang mana?
Orang yang masih orang yang lebih maju, yang lebih advance lagi kan.
Bagus untuk diteruskan kerana dia telah banyak membantu golongan-golongan dari rendah dan atas untuk sama-sama maju ke hadapan sekali. Kalau betul di IB itu hanya mementingkan Bumiputra, kita boleh lihat banyak Bumiputra yang lebih kaya daripada bangsa-bangsa lain. Tapi yang sekarang ni pada 2009, currently we can see that the Malay are number third instead of number first. Jadi saya masih nampak di IB perlu diteruskan di Malaysia.
I think it's long overdue already. Yes.
You mean
Yes, fulfill its purpose already. But I think the aim of the NEP is to help all races, provided they are poor.
After so many years, about we're independent for so many years, NEP have we ever done a review that whether we have filtered down there? If we have really filtered all the way to where the people should benefit, I think NEP is a very good policy, and it should come to a time that we have to keep reviewing the NEP.
Since 1971, there is a changes until now, okay, and they should be reviewed in terms of the Malay community, the Indian community, and also the Chinese community, and also the other races, to give a more, to give a more benefits in terms of so that they can develop together with the other races.
Ada baiknya untuk kita kaji balik di IB tu kita sesuaikan. Jadi kalaulah dasar tu berkekalan, bermakna selagi dia nama orang Melayu, kita kena tolong dia lah.
My first guest is DAP MP for PJ Utara, Mr. Tony Pua. Mr. Pua, thank you for being here on Point of View.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you, what do you think of the NEP?
I think the NEP, if you look at the objectives that they have put in place within the NEP document, there is eradication of poverty, restructuring society such that economic well-being is not identified according to race, I think they're perfectly noble. They're absolutely noble. The problem with NEP is in its implementation. And over the past 50 years, the emphasis have shifted from poverty eradication to increasing the wealth of one particular segment of the community. And because of the change in focus, there's a lot of abuses of the policy that have resulted in a lot of negative implications for the rest of the society. So overall, NEP, the objectives itself cannot be challenged. I think nobody wants poverty. Everyone wants to be the economic wealth of the citizens to be unrelated to the race of the person, but the way it has been implemented, that has been the major shortcoming of this policy.
Okay, all right. Let's just talk about where you say the way it's been implemented is the major shortcoming of this policy. But we also have to understand that when it was first introduced, the Malays were the poorer section of society,
right.
And therefore to help give them a boost, they had to be given a leg up, so to speak. So how is that wrong?
I think that's not wrong. That's not wrong in the sense that it worked in the 1970s because Malays happens to be the poorest in the society. So when the policy targeted Malays specifically, the poor were being helped. But today, the socio-economic structure of Malays is no longer the same as it was in the 1970s. So when you go by race, when you continue to persist in economic assistance by race, what will happen is that the richer among the Malays will benefit more than the poorer among the Malays. So a socio-economic policy that will be more just and more equitable in helping the poor will be by identifying help in terms of needs. That means if you are poor, we help you. If you are rich, then you take a step back and hopefully you can help the poor. So by not identifying with race, then you actually get to help the poor more than if you identify with race. As an example, today, for example, if you have a specific policy that assists Malays, people who are able to take advantage of this policy more will not be the poor Malays. The people who will be able to take advantage of these policies more will be the more educated Malays, the more influential, the more connected Malays, in terms of APs, for example, in terms of legal practices which are protected by banks and so on. So these are people who are already more educated, more influential, more connected. They are able to take advantage of a policy based on race, whereas the poor among the Malays are no longer able to take advantage of this policy.
Okay, but what would your recommendation be then for a review of this policy, or for this policy to be abolished completely?
I think the race element has to be taken out. If, for example, we had implemented a policy without taking in consideration race in the 1970s, would the Malays still have achieved what they have achieved today? Would they be shortchanged in the process? I think not. If we have implemented a policy based on your economic well-being in the 1970s, that means if you are poor, you receive assistance regardless of race, they would have been the overwhelming beneficiary of such a policy as well. So today, we should continue to shift the policy from something based on race to something based on needs. And it is a policy that we are doing, say, for example, in our Pakatan government in Penang. We are looking to eradicate hardcore poverty within 1 year after we have won the elections in Penang, hardcore poverty. And we all know that the overwhelming majority of people who are still in hardcore poverty in Penang, which has not been removed over the past 50 years, are Malays. So when implementing a policy based on needs, okay, you will take care of the people who needs it the most, regardless of race. And in this particular case, the Malays benefit the most.
All right. Now let's just go back to, well, however, when the NEP was first set up, there were some quantitative targets.
That's right.
Now the government is going to say that these quantitative targets have not been met. How then can we ask for a review of this policy if these targets have not been met?
That comes back to my earlier point, whereby what the government is now saying, the Malay wealth of the country is stuck at 19%. Okay, it has been 19%, I think, since the year 1990. It has been unchanged since 1990. So it progressed very well from 1970s to 1990. They have increased from 3% to 19% of the total wealth in the country, but it got stuck there. Plus minus a bit, it got stuck there. Why is it stuck there? We need to ask, why is it stuck there? Is it because NAP has not fulfilled its objectives? Or is it because of NAP it is stuck there?
What are your views?
My views are obviously it is because of NAP it's stuck there, because the wealth is being pilfered away by an overwhelming minority, whereas the vast majority of Malays are not receiving the benefits that they are supposed to receive from the NAP. I think that is the reason, that's the main reason why the target 19% is stuck there. And to me, it's ironical for the government to continue to persist with the view that we need to persist with NAP because we have not achieved the targets, without taking into consideration that it could be because of the NAP, that's why we're stuck with 19% and not the 30% that they hope to achieve.
Well, now, what do you say of the argument that even though this is a largely pro-Bumiputra policy,
right,
it's part of the social contract?
I think the social contract is an issue that if you go back to the Federal Constitution, Article 153 basically states that you need to recognize the special position of the Malays. And with regards to social contract is that there are certain privileges given to them or certain rights being granted to them as per the Federal Constitution, including things like scholarships, including things like the power of the Malay Sultans and so on. So there's no, there's no dispute over the Federal Constitutions, the rights as per enshrined in the Federal Constitution. What we're asking for essentially is the rest of the opportunities. This social contract argument has been expanded to the extent where everything from social, from economics to social issues to politics, rights or preferences have to be given to a particular race. I think that has gone